There's one huge difference between military life and civilian life. If the CEO of a corporation really screws up, all of his workers may lose their jobs. If the CEO of an infantry company screws up, he may get his entire company killed. Okay? So the decisions that are being made and the consequences of the decisions are significantly different. And I think that the folks who are up against the consequences of the military decisions really, really, really need and deserve to be listened to. And I think blogs offer an opportunity for that the American public as a whole has never had before. When you think about Ernie Pyle in World War II and the huge impact that he had, one of the reasons that he had it was that there were so few avenues by which the guys back home could keep track of what the grunts were doing. That's why Pyle was so incredibly popular, because he cared about the guy in the foxhole, the guy in the tank, the guy in the cockpit of the airplane. That's who he was writing about, not about Omar Bradley and George S. Patton and, you know, Bernard Montgomery. He was writing about the soldier or the airman or the sailor or the Marine. Well, now the sailor or the Marine or the airman can speak for him or herself. And we have some incredibly well-educated, well-trained people doing just that. Anybody who looks at the military blogs that I've looked at knows damn well that we are not relying on untrained cannon fodder for the U.S. military. Okay? These are highly skilled people. These are capable people. I'm sure we've still got our yutzes running around over there. Well, you know, we have them in civilian life too. Okay? And I'm sure that we have our folks, yeah, what the hell, kill them all, let God sort them out. Okay? Well, hey, there are times when I can actually say, okay, I could go with that, you know. But by and large, my impression is that we have people who are definitely aware of the moral dimension of their chosen career and their chosen profession, and who do their damnedest to meet the requirements and the demands. And I see that reflected in their blogs. I see that reflected in the places where their blogs disagree with one another. I see that reflected in the discussion that can arise when, you know, oh yeah, well, you wouldn't feel that way if, you know, comes up out there. And I think it's good. I think it's healthy. And I think that the American public doesn't go and look at them enough. I think that one reason we don't is because they may make us uncomfortable. They may make us say, well, I feel this way about it. Why doesn't he? Okay? And I trust me, I've seen a few there where it's like, I don't have a clue where he's coming from with this. And yet there is an absolute internal consistency to what's being said. Excuse me. I feel like, you know, Gollum. Okay. All right, wait a minute. Okay, I'm better now. All right.
So then I take it you wouldn't agree with some of the unofficial and even official efforts to try to eliminate milblogs?
I can understand where those are coming from, especially when they're coming out of the military hierarchy. Or for that matter, I can understand where they're coming from, which is not the same thing as to say agree with where they're coming from. Coming from the civilian side of the policy-making equation as well. Milblogs have the potential to be extraordinarily embarrassing to the U.S. military. To publish pictures of prisons that we really wish weren't being published, for example, which can do enormous damage, in part because of how easily and readily they can be taken out of context and used by somebody else. It's kind of like the whole the footage of the Rodney King thing. Without taking sides one way or the other on that, I will just observe that one of the jurors in the original trial that acquitted the officers was asked by a reporter, how could you possibly have acquitted these people? The entire country has seen the video of them beating this guy. And the jury said, well, we saw the entire video. You know, you've seen this much of it replayed over and over and over, so you know what happened. Okay, we saw the entire video, which let us set it into context. And while we think that they probably did overreact, we were not convinced that they were beyond the reasonable expectations of what happened in that entire confrontation. Now, as I say, I'm not taking a position one way or the other as to who was right or who was wrong on that. But what I'm saying is that the distinction that that juror was making between 5 seconds of footage played over and over and over again and 5 minutes of footage that 5 seconds was taken out of can be incredibly profound. And one of the things that I think that the opponents of milblogging are obviously concerned about is the potential for just that. And they're also concerned about the potential for the military, by its nature, does not like to have its dirty linen washed in public. I can't think of too many institutions that do. But the military in particular is a hierarchical institution. It has to be. And its concern has to be as much with its ability to do its job as it is with how it does its job. In other words, if the U.S. military has to make a choice between being able to successfully defend the country and observing every jot and tittle of civil rights legislation, the military is going to tend to err on the side of defending the country and deal with the civil rights issues later. Now, having said that, I think that the military is actually well ahead of the curve in a lot of respects where civil rights and gender equality are concerned, despite the criticism that it gets. There are some areas in which, shall we say, less than fully enlightened attitudes still hold sway. But generally speaking, my impression is that that is the closer you get to where expectation of combat is involved. So it's twofold. One is you're getting into an area where decisions are going to have the most painful consequences for somebody. And the other one is that you're getting into an area where the military can least afford to have its functionality compromised. And so, of course, there's going to be more resistance. It ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't care if it is broke, it's still working, don't fix it kind of thinking is going to come into play. Having said that, though, when you look at the military specializations that are now open to women in the military and compare them to the same specializations, the same broadness of specializations in the civilian economy, I think the Army and the Air Force and the Navy actually come out on top in terms of universality. Plus, they have a hierarchical system in place for kicking butt if somebody is not meeting their obligations. That is much more clear-cut and can be much more painful for the malefactor than the civilian corporate world.